Hello Power Rangers Lightning Collection fans, and welcome to the next chapter of the Lightning Library. This is the series where we take an in-depth look at every entry released in Hasbro's Power Rangers Lightning Collection. We go over the history of it, and then of course take a look at the actual release itself. Today we are going to be taking a look at late 2020's Monsters Wave 1, the first wave and the first subline to come in the Lightning Collection that wasn't just normal figures. So these were $10 more than typical Lightning Collection figures, being priced at $30 for these ones. And they are bigger, more deluxe figures that are based off of iconic Monsters of the Week from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1. Now, we're not going to go super in-depth on these figures and their kind of review section, because I've already done a review of these figures back when they came out last fall, which I will have a title card pop up here, so you guys definitely can go check out that video. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging, and then of course we will go ahead and look at the history. Packaging wise for these guys, they are in a lot bigger of a box here. As you can see with King Sphinx, you still get Tom Whalen artwork there, but these boxes are the same size as the Putty Patroller 2-pack and the Zordon and Alpha 2-pack, and then I also believe SPD Omega had the same size box as well. But you're getting pretty much exactly what you would expect from typical Hasbro Power Rangers Lightning Collection boxes. Here's Pumpkin Wrapper's render there, and then of course we also have the front of Pumpkin Wrapper's box with the Tom Whalen artwork there. So there he goes. Pumpkin Wrapper is extremely top heavy, so before he completely drops, let's go ahead and look at the history. On the last chapter of the Lightning Library, I mentioned at the end of August 2020 some info about upcoming figures was first stated in videos from MCU Collector 24 on YouTube. In addition to the lineup of Wave 7, he also gave the info that he also posted on his Instagram story that Hasbro would be releasing a new $30 line of deluxe monster figures for the Lightning Collection, starting with the classic MMPR monsters King Sphinx and Pumpkin Wrapper. At the time, there was no listings around to back this up for sure. This information was furthered even more by No Pink Spandex when they backed these rumors just as they did for the Wave 7 lineup. In the middle of September, they updated their report to say that the figures would be known as Monsters Wave 1, and instead of the $29.99 rumored price, they would be closer to $22.99 to $24.99, though we now know that that original price of $29.99 was the one that would actually be correct. All the way up until Hasbro PulseCon at the end of September, no listings for this new subline had turned up, and therefore Hasbro was able to actually surprise fans by having Monsters Wave 1 be the first Lightning Collection reveals of the day. At this point in time, the figures were only far enough along to be shown off as their deco specs, with more information and pre-order details to come at a future event. On October 7th, a new assortment listing was found on both a distributor site and a bill of lading that seemed to match up to what would be the monster-based figures. Another bill of lading on October 12th would give the codenames of SRE Milky Way and SRE Big Bang, which were assumed, and correctly so, to be the codes for the monsters, which was confirmed when the figures went up for pre-order at the end of October, following the October 30th Fan First Friday, even though pictures of them leaked out right before. Despite being revealed as 7-inch figures at PulseCon, this Fan First Friday had them stated to be 8-inch figures, which would tower over the main Rangers in the line. Despite pre-orders claiming them to have a release date of January 2021, this of course would not end up being the case, as Big Bad Toy Store would get them in and start to ship them out in November 2020. At PulseCon, they announced the Spectrum series of boxes as Target exclusives, but at the time, only Wave 7 was shown to be getting this treatment. Not even a week after the regular boxes came out on online stores, Spectrum box releases for both Monsters Wave 1 and Versus Packs Wave 1 were spotted at Targets. To this day, none of the Spectrum versions of these two waves have ever been announced officially as existing by Hasbro, and are only known to those who saw them, bought them, or kept up with news about the line. It is unknown why these were never announced like the Wave 7 ones were, but they do exist. Today, the monsters have the reputation of being the biggest misstep of the line so far, with their inaccurate sizes, lack of paint details, and the more expensive price point. It is now common to see both of them on constant discount, to be closer to regular figure prices, or even in the case of King Sphinx, to under $10 recently. So first up here we have King Sphinx, the 50th figure in the Power Rangers Lightning Collection, which is pretty crazy because we are about to be getting the figure reveal for figure number 100 in August during Power Month. So we will have already doubled the amount of figures by the time, we get that announcement here from when this guy came out. So here he is, of course, looking at the back box render to the actual figure. The render is a lot darker, there's a lot more shadows going on here than the actual figure. The figure's color is more show accurate than kind of what the box is showing. Now obviously you have the common problems that are brought up with this guy, his height, the missing black paint on his nose and in his mouth. But for the most part, the render to the box here looks basically the same. I think actually the figure has the eye painted on his chest there, and I don't think there's any detail of the eye there in the box. So that's actually kind of interesting. As I said earlier, I'm going to be brief with these guys because I did already do a review of them back then. But, I mean, it's not a horrible figure, although he is one of my least favorite figures from 2020. The sculpting is beautiful on both of these guys. I love the kind of wash you get there to kind of bring out some more of the details. The joints all feel nice and stiff. Everything is big and bulky, and it does look menacing and nice and everything. The wings, you have a lot of articulation. They come separate in the box, so you do have to attach them, but nothing too crazy there. They don't always like to stand, although I think over time they've actually stayed in pretty well. You even get a kind of a ball joint back here on his tail, which that's a nice detail. Obviously, I mentioned this a little earlier, but he does not have black paint on his nose or in his mouth, which was a common point of controversy with this guy. It would have been nice to have him have it, of course, but I think for the most part, this is still not a bad figure in concept and in overall detail. However, where he really falls flat is with the scaling. So first of all, these monsters are relatively hard to get to stand up just due to their bulk and everything like that. But here is King Sphinx. I guess it would be a little better if I have him sort of standing up kind of like that. If we bring in, he's off to the side here, the Wave 6 Goldar figure. Now, we actually got to see King Sphinx stand next to Goldar in the episode he was from when they fought the Megazord, and they were the same size. They're not the same size here. Goldar is where he should be in terms of like relation to the Rangers, and then King Sphinx here just completely towers over that. And it's just a big shame that they did not bother to make the scaling even like remotely correct. And I understand the idea of wanting to have the monsters be menacing and things like that compared to the Rangers, but then you bring in a Ranger and he completely towers over him. And it doesn't really work, like you just have this giant scaled monster next to a monster who should be the same size, and then a Ranger. Even we saw Jason fight King Sphinx in the episode and they were the same height. So this just doesn't really work. Now, King Sphinx, if he would have been Goldar height and exactly the way he came out, I think this would have been pretty okay. And his accessories are nice as well. You get nice swappable hands here, just a fist and kind of another open hand. Nothing too crazy with him there. But his King Scepter is really nice. You get this brand new unique effect piece that's only ever been released with him. So here's his staff. And then you get this really cool one with a bunch of question marks and everything all over that, which that looks really cool. So you do get a brand new unique and exclusive effect piece, but I just think that there's a lot let down with this guy. Between the paint detailing, the scale is the biggest thing that I have a problem with. I know it doesn't bother everyone. I know some people really like the monsters to tower over the Rangers, but it's really that Goldar problem, where they definitely should be the same height and they're not, that I think just really brings this guy down. Next up here we have Pumpkin Wrapper, and when it comes to the two figures in this wave, I really do think that he works a lot better than King Sphinx does. Looking at the render to the actual figure, I don't really see anything too major in terms of differences. One thing I did notice is that you can see here where he has his knees bent, that the joint continues to be green there, and on the actual figure it's orange there. They didn't paint the green onto the joint. So that's like the only thing I really noticed that's kind of different. But we kind of got to go quick here at this guy because he's not going to stand up very well for very long. He is extremely top heavy, so we'll go and just take him off the stand here. I tried to get him to pose with that arm up more like it is on the back of the box, but the weight of the pumpkin just brings the whole arm down, and it just wasn't worth trying to fiddle with it too much. But Pumpkin Wrapper here, I think he works pretty okay. He's more or less the same size as a regular Lightning Collection figure up until you get to this piece, and then of course the head is completely different. Head is very nicely sculpted though. It is still technically on a ball joint. You do get this nice black wash in there and everything. Now I know a lot of people claim that the mouth and the eyes should be painted in. The actual suit did not have them painted in. That was just shadows on the show, on the screen. So this is actually accurate. Tom's box art has it filled in black, just so you can actually have some kind of emphasis on it on the box. But this is accurate. So you do get this little yellow paint there with his eye, so that's pretty cool. And I mean, the detailing is fantastic. You get that kind of pumpkin lined pattern across the entire thing. You get that, nice vine work and everything like that. And I think more or less he does work pretty well. Yeah, he just doesn't like to stand for all that long. So if we can just have him stand for like a second. We'll bring in Jason really quick while we have the time. And while he still absolutely towers over him, you can see that they are kind of almost at shorter length there. And then, of course, he did have a big head in the show. So I feel like this one works a little bit more better, especially if you have them in more dynamic battle poses and stuff. The scaling problem is not as evident on him as it is with King Sphinx. It is still there, but just not as horrible. He does come with some pretty cool accessories, though. We'll just put him down because I know he's going to fall. But you get these really cool vine pieces here. They're kind of just, you can wrap around, have them hold. These are just fun, kind of like a little lasso. You can have them like hook onto a ranger or something like that. So that's pretty neat. Of course, you get swappable hands, just a fist and kind of an open hand there. Nothing too crazy. Just like King Sphinx, you get a brand new unique effect piece that wraps around his arm, which is very similar to the kind of lightning effect that we got with Lord Draken Evolution 3. It's kind of a similar cover and everything like that. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, my favorite accessory that he comes with is he comes with 3 of these pumpkins. I only have 1 of them right here because I have the other 2 on figures because, just like in the show, these have head pegs down there. So you can, instead of like a swappable head, well, it's kind of like that, but I mean, instead of it being like a civilian head, you can swap the helmets off and put pumpkins on your ranger figures just like he did in the show, or even on your pumpkin putties, as I did. So I put one of the pumpkins here on a putty. I have 2 pumpkin putties like this with the other 2 pumpkins, and kind of just keep one off to the side for him to have a pumpkin. But they're all pretty cool. They all have that little head joint in there. It is kind of tough to get them on there. So now that I have it on there, I don't really like to take it off. But there it goes. I think I had that pumpkin on there for like a year almost. But because it is pretty difficult to get the head on there. But you can do it. I think I definitely loosened the head joint on that one to make it work. But it's a fun little gimmick. I'm really happy that they included that with him. So finally here, as I did mention at the beginning of the video, while these never got announced and to this day have still never been announced, there were Spectrum versions of these 2 figures here. So here they are in their Spectrum packaging. So you have brand new Tom artwork from, of course, Tom Whalen there, just like you always do. Looks very, very nice. But of course, King Sphinx here is at a side profile, just like all of the other Spectrums, while Pumpkin Wrapper has the exact same artwork, because if you had him at a full side profile, you wouldn't see anything of his face. It would just be the side of a pumpkin, which would look a little weird, so I get why he didn't do that there. But these look really pretty in the boxes, that's for sure. They're definitely heavy. I mean, these are heavy figures with the big head there and, just the mass of King Sphinx there. But you can kind of see, how the layout was. The actual trays inside are laid out the exact same way that they were on their original releases. So I keep all my Spectrums sealed and packaged just because these were special, limited, exclusive packaging, and they're hard to get, or they were. I mean, you can still find these all over the place. Targets have them all the time because I don't know if it's just because no one knew that they existed because they never got announced, or because no one wanted them. That's definitely a good factor right there. A lot of people don't like the Spectrum series, and also a lot of people didn't like the monsters. So when you pack in 2 things that people didn't really like together, a lot of people didn't buy these Spectrum monsters, but I did. I bought all 8 of the Spectrum series figures boxes. Yay! And that is going to do it for this week's chapter of the Lightning Library on the Monsters Wave 1. Overall, I don't think that these are bad figures overall. I don't think that there really is a bad figure in the Lightning collection. I just think that there was a lot of wasted opportunities with these guys. If they were scaled properly and King Sphinx got a little bit more paint, these would be complete winners. I love what they come with. I love the idea of this line. And even at the smaller scale, if they were still $30, I think that would have been somewhat reasonable. I mean, you still get all that exclusive molding, all that exclusive accessories that they really can't use for anything else again. so it makes sense why they would charge more for them and everything. And it's just really a shame that they had to go ahead and screw that up with the scaling problem. Because if they didn't do that, I think these maybe would have sold better. We would have still been getting the proper Wave 2 we were supposed to get with iGuy and Piranha's head. We are getting iGuy in this line, and for whatever reason, iGuy is actually going to be bigger than King Sphinx, as they confirmed on the Fan First Friday. So, of course, we'll take a look at him when he comes out in a couple of months. But, I don't know, there's just a lot of missed opportunities here. Good monster picks. King Sphinx and Pumpkin Rapper are both very iconic monsters. I don't think that there was anything wrong in what they picked, and I think the execution was lacking, you know? But let me know down in the comments below, what did you think of Monsters Wave 1? Did you hate them as much as everyone else seems to hate them? Did you like them more than people seem to like them? Whatever you want to say about them, let me know down there below. But of course, that's all for today. I'll see you all next week when we take a look at the penultimate episode of Season 2 of Lightning Library, when we take a look at the Versus Packs Wave 1. See y'all later.